So we've come inside the Highway 61 Blues Museum, and you know what? I'm pretty excited, but I don't know much about it, but I did find someone who did. Tell us a little bit, tell us your name, and tell us about the building here.
Okay, I'm Jay Kirgis, and the museum here, the Highway 61 Blues Museum, has been around now for about 22, 23 years.
Right.
I was graduating at Ole Miss, and I was asked if I could come down here to Leland to help paint on the murals.
Right.
And I moved down here, and I've been painting on the murals around town. And that's when I was approached and said, we're going to be opening this museum, would you like to help? And so I stayed, and we actually opened up over across the street. We were in the bottom of the Mormon, not the Mormon, the other one, the Masonic temple. And we opened over there, and then I met my wife. We got married and moved away, moved to Houston. And as we were moving, right about that time is when they got a hold of this building and moved over here. This is an old hotel. It used to be 4 stories. Now it's only 2. The top 2 burn off. This behind me, actually this recess here, actually is the door to the elevator.
Oh, wow.
It used to go all the way up, and now it doesn't, obviously. But different, Son Thomas, the blues player, when he came to town, he worked as a bellhop here in the museum, or in the hotel. We also had this, I can't remember his name, and I probably wouldn't want to drop names anyway, but he was a very rich guy who at one point had installed his girlfriend upstairs for a considerable period of time. Later on, when he passed, she came forward and said, well, you know, is there any inheritance here for his son?
Right.
Because she had given birth to a child. And they're like, well, you know, you'd have to prove that it's his kid. And she went to hotel records and hospital records, and she was actually able to prove it, and he received inheritance money. So that's part of, you know, what was going on here at the hotel. It was originally all hotel. And then it changed to later on. That room there became a lawyer's office, and to the left became the diner, and then later on it became a doctor's office. Now we've got everybody pretty much starts out in that room. In the middle of the room is a big model of Dockery Plantation, which is kind of ground zero for Delta blues.
Right.
Charlie Patton lived there and worked there and played there. And Charlie Patton, if you think of the blues like an hourglass, Charlie Patton and Dockery Farms are right there where it gets thin. He kind of took all the other stuff that was before, different forms, field hollers, work songs, you know, and folk music and stuff, and he kind of gelled right there with Charlie and Dockery Farms. And then Son House and Howlin' Wolf moved there to meet Charlie, play with him, learn from him. And then they moved on and taught other people, and so the bottom of the hourglass opens up again.
Yeah.
This room is one of my favorites because I love the way it looks.
Right.
I love the original tile. The tile is just, I mean, you can't say enough about how great the tile is. I love some of the people in here. The painting there, the one on the right, the gentleman in the blue shirt, sitting playing the guitar, those are my paintings. He's one of my favorite people in the museum. When I first came down here, he was one of the first ones that I met. And his story is one of my favorite blues stories. When he was 7 years old, he was getting picked on because he's biracial.
Right.
He would get picked on by both white kids and black kids. And a kid poked his eye out with an arrow.
Wow.
And to help him feel better and recuperate, his mother actually was able to buy him a real guitar instead of just like a diddly bow. And he learned, and by the time he was about 9, he was slipping over to Parchman Farm, sitting outside the fence and playing while the inmates worked. Parchment Farm was a working penitentiary.
Right.
So they grew their own food, made their own clothes, self-sufficient. So they had crops and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so they would be out working the fields, and he would go over there and he would play for them. And the overseers liked it because it kept them in and kept the prisoners in a good mood.
Right.
Gave them the rhythm to work by, made the work go by easier, and so everything was better when the kids over there playing. At one point, they started slipping him over the fence, and when a guy got a chance to go up to the commissary and phone home, you know, you get a call about once a week, call your wife, call your girlfriend, whatever. They would call the wife and pick up this little boy and his guitar and have him play love songs to their wives over the phone.
Right.
So that's my favorite story. In here, Willie Foster over there, another good blues story is when he was born, his mother was picking cotton. She had to take a break, go over the side of the field, put some cotton sacks down, give birth, and then go back to work. So
Wow.
those are the kind of stories you get from that era, and we focus on musicians that either were born within about 30 miles of here, or at least came to live here before they died. My son Thomas wasn't born here, but he came and spent most of his life here. Like I say, he was a bellman here in this hotel. He also went to work for his uncle, who was a one-armed grave digger.
Yeah.
I can't figure out how I could ever do that.
Wow.
And so he was a grave digger here in town, as well as playing blues. And he got enough notoriety that he was able to get out and go play in Europe and some other places like that.
Right.
He had a son, Pat Thomas, that he taught, passed down his music to. He also passed down his hobby, which was digging clay from the stream banks and stuff, and then he would take the clay and he would make these skulls.
Right.
And like birds and animals and different things like that. He also taught his son to do that stuff. In fact, we have one of his skulls in the museum that was donated back to the museum by John Fogarty from Creedence Clearwater Revival, who had bought it from Son.
Pretty cool. So you can find that and more, just check them out in Leland, Mississippi.